where we've talked in, you've got incidents where there'll be emergencies and you have to have immediate access to those, and I'll speak to that in a minute. As Rob pointed out, and I had a professor that would always stamp his foot as if he'd gone through his slides to say, this is the one you pay attention to for the quiz. So this is that slide, I'm stamping my foot. Just as some background, authentication can mean a lot of different things to different people. For our context here, it would be the process of verifying a user's identity and authorization to access a network resource. There's a number of standards, regulations that are developing or have been released. These are two of them that talk about authentication and the need for those. The API 1164 says all information systems must have a security mechanism installed that requires authentication prior to file access. Systems in physically secured environments are exempt. The NERC CIP 7 requirement 5.2.3 says the responsible entity should have a policy for managing the use of such accounts, shared or generic, that have limited access to those with authorization and an audit trail for how that account is used. So this is where things are headed, right? They're required to authenticate users to systems. But you've got a pipe that's leaking some explosive gas. You want to have access immediately to shut that pump off and stop that leak to contain, mitigate the concerns that could be there. So these authentication systems can't negatively impact them. You got a password, high intensity, your boss is yelling, you gotta stop it, and you fat finger it, and lock yourself out, call the IT department, hey, could you let me back in? And, I mean, that's not acceptable. So, we need access to those, and there's, like I said, a number of standards. So, how are we gonna get there? Nacio's our approach, is we've looked at how we can find out the users that are on the system and track their usage. So, as a user approaches their workstation, they'd have some token, their badge, in our case here, and they issue some critical command. They change a set point on a system, modify the system in some way. We'd have a sensor that would pick that up and say, there's been some change to the system, some alert. And then we have a network camera that would take a picture of that workstation. Knows where that came from, takes a picture at that workstation, an authentication system that would say, okay, grab the badge information. Picture gets populated, sends it off to the authentication, your badging system, and then populates that. So that's kind of our approach, where the control system isn't touched. In authentication is somewhat of a misnomer, as we'd already named it, and then as we were getting some review from some industry folk, who said, you can't put something in. We were thinking, have the network sensor here in line where, until they're authenticated, you don't let that critical command through. But they said, we can't do that until we can prove the system that it's going to work every time. And so this is all passive. It's just monitoring, and so somewhat it's more of a identification logging system as developed right now. So we also thought, we need to get stuff quick to market. So we grabbed a bunch of COTS products, IDS, RFID, some cameras, and then tied them together with some software. To be able to get this quickly to market, have a proof of concept that can be demonstrated. Now, a couple of things we wanted to avoid. Some of you may have used security systems before, and they have alerting mechanisms, and I know we've got systems at P&L that provide so much data, but there's no information or no knowledge. There's just a whole bunch of data. I don't know. One example that I heard was a company was asked to go and do assessment on this other corporation, and the administrator there had set up the alerts so that every time there was an incident, which was, somebody was the snorm log or whatever, he would get an email. Well, I guess it was working for a while, but then they came in, they scanned, did a ping scan and a port scan of the network, and immediately he got 150,000 emails. So not only did I crash the system, but crashed the email server. So we need to just capture those critical pieces of intelligence. The security NP is working to do that as well, where they authenticate only important aspects. So with the Nacio solution, we only trigger on those critical commands when that system has been modified in a specific way. And then it'll capture that network traffic and patching from. So trying to get us back on time in a hurry. I think I'm a little ahead of schedule on the 15 minutes I was allotted. But in summary, we want to use COTS information, COTS technologies to be able to get something quick. Don't want to impact operations, and then it helps bridge that gap between the operational requirements and the regulatory requirements.